Just like you download a ISO and you install in your laptop, right? So that's not charged. It's just same thing. It's just automation of the installation process. So there is nothing like we're not using a VM which is like accessible by many users. It's local to you. Only you can access. Nobody else can access, right?
Okay, okay, okay. As long as you have like big servers, like a lot of big RAM and CPU, you can deploy multiple of VMs and use as dev environment. Okay.
Yeah, so in server environment, we don't use Vagrant. It's only on your laptops just to create the development environment. If it is a server
Develop.
environment, we use VMware or for virtualization, Power VM, Hyper-V kind of thing.
Okay, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Nice.
okay. So why I'm focusing on Vagrant is because once you have two VMs up and running, you can configure one as a server, other as the agent, and you can start setting up some tools, right? So So what is configuration management tools or continuous deployment tools, right? So if you have hundreds of servers and if you want to perform a small task, something like adding a user or updating a file, configuration file, right, or applying a patch, right, or installing RPM or uninstalling something, right? So these kind of tasks we need to manually log into each server, then perform using, I mean, a putty tool, and you log into each server. And if it is like 10 servers, it's fine. If you have 100 servers and thousands of servers, it's really difficult to log into each server and perform something, right? And let us say you have to configure MySQL, right? Or you want to configure PHP or Java. So there are many softwares which you can configure on these servers. So in a data center or in a typically in a server environment, it's really difficult to configure all these things on a by manually by logging into each server. Right. So for that we have configuration management tools, which will basically use to set up the environment or apply a patch, install RPM, update a configuration file, or Tomcat or JBoss. For anything, we can use these tools basically to automation. It's end-to-end automation. Also, something like when you have the continuous integration setup, and you have your source code repository, and you have your build tools, and then we have Artifactory. Then what we do is we continuously deploy those software, those artifacts, those binaries into the test machines, right? So for that also we use configuration management or continuous deployment tools. So we have Chef, Puppet, Ansible, SaltStack. These are the uh, main configuration management or continuous deployment tools, right? So all in basic work in the same way. So what is it? So we configure one of the machine as server, and we configure all others as agents, right? And we write some small script on server that automatically does the things for us, right? So each tool is written in different language, and each tool has a different syntax, and each tool has different terminology, right? But essentially the concept, the functionality is same. So basically performing automation on all of the machines and all of the clients, right? So in some of the tools we call agents, clients, minnows, or in some of the tool we call master or server. So basically we have a master and we have agents. We write something on the master that will go and update on the agent. So that's the distinct principle. So Ansible also works in the same way. So basically we have a master and we have the agents, right? So this is called Ansible, let us say master, and clients are called on Ansible agents. So it uses SSH for communication, right? So the advantage with Ansible is something like we don't have to install agent on the client machines or the agents, right? We don't have to install anything on the agent because SSH comes by default with the operating system, whereas Ansible has to be installed on the master. So Ansible RPM has to be installed, right? So once we have done the setup, then we can write some small scripts in Ansible master that will go and perform the job on the clients, right? So it's based on push mechanism, so wherein we write scripts on master and it pushes changes to agents, right? And those scripts are called playbooks. Right, and the syntax is based on YAML. This is nothing but yet another markup language. Right, so this syntax which we write, so for which we write the scripts, is basically called YAML, and this is based on the entire Ansible is written in Python. So I use a lot of Python code in the Ansible, and but we don't have to write in Python, but we have to write in, we have to follow a syntax called YAML while writing the scripts. So there are two versions of Ansible. One is the open source version and the other is the enterprise version. So enterprise version is chargeable, so we need to buy the license before using it, and open source version is freely, you can use it. So using open source version we can manage up to 100 machines, and using enterprise version, if you want to manage more than 100 machines, we need to buy the license. Okay, playbooks are written in YAML, but see, any tool which you use is written in some language, right? So in the same way, Ansible is written in Python. Is this clear? So it's, enterprise edition is called Ansible Tower. Okay, so if you want to use and if you want to also want like support from in case of any issues or in case of any debugging, we need to buy the license, right? So that is chargeable. So that is called enterprise edition, and it using which we can manage up to we can manage more than 100 nodes using the tower. So the so for any other configuration management tools, we need to install both master and the agent software on machines. But whereas in case of Ansible, it's only master, and the slave you don't have to install anything because by default SSH comes on any operating system, right? So Ansible master we can configure, then we can configure the slaves, and we need to set up something called passwordless authentication so that master can push its changes to the clients, right? So we write a script on the master and we push the change to the client using SSH. Okay, so if you want to set up, we don't have to install anything on the clients because it uses SSH internally for communication between the master and the agent, right? So if you have, let us say, 10 nodes, no point of using Ansible. What do you mean? Yeah, this is the advantage which it has, but other tools we need to install on both the server and the clients, but that's a one-time job. That's still okay, right? So you have one-time installation that has to be done on the clients, and once it is done and your setup is done, then at any point of time you can update your setup, you can modify it using the scripts, right? So once you have set up, it's done. So it's like you install the master on the on one of the machines, and you configure the clients, and you install the agent on the clients in case of any other tools like Chef or Puppet or SaltStack, right? So we install the agents as well, but the advantage with Ansible is we don't have to install anything on the agent, right? So the terminology is different, but basically the concept is same. We call playbooks, or we call cookbooks, or we call manifests or states firewall ports, SSH we need to open, yes, and there is also another port which we need to open on the server so that it listens for the clients. I think that's all. Other than that, nothing is needed. Yeah, most of the tools we open one or two ports for communication between the master and the slave, and everything has a different authentication authorization methodology, right? So some of them use PEM files, some of them use .ssh files, some of them use public key and private key, but mostly the environment is secure, right? So whatever the communication you are making, whatever the ports you're opening, that is actually internal to your network, right? So nobody can be able to log in from outside. It's you have intranet and you manage, you convert one of the machine as server, you convert other machine as the clients, and we write the scripts from the server that manage the clients, right? So it's internal to the network. Machine and make it master, right? And then, so we don't have to do anything client, but we need to have relation between the agent SSH keys. So we need to enable communication between the master and the agent, right? So once we enable the communication between the master and the agent, then we can write some of the scripts to automate something, right? So we basically write scripts, or we can call them playbooks, to automate some of the tasks, right? So how do we install a software on a master, right? So like any other software, Ansible or Chef or Puppet, we need to install on the one of the machine, as we have to configure it as a master, right? So to configure it as a master, we need to enable the repository. So what is the location of the repository for Red Hat, and what is the location for Ubuntu? So where do we see the repository configuration for Ubuntu? Yeah, it is the m.repos.d for Red Hat and etc apt sources list for Ubuntu. So there we configure the repository. So it's like giving the information, like from this side you have to download the RPMs or DPKG tools, right? So to configure that, so to install Ansible as well, we need to have Ansible repository configured on the machine, right? So for Red Hat, Fedora, CentOS and all, we have something called EPEL repository, right? So this is something like extra packages enterprise Linux, right? So this is the repository where we can get the packages. So if we have this repository on the machine, most of the packages, most of the open source software we can install using this package. So this we have to configure on the machine. So how do we configure? So there is something called epl.repo package that we need to install. So install this on machine, install this on Ansible master. And so what is the tool we use to install something? Once we configure the repository, what is the tool we use to install something? Yeah, that is for all Ansible. So this will install Ansible. Right. So from where does it install Ansible? So internally it goes to etc.repos.d and it fetches the package from EPEL repo, and from there it installs the RPM. Right. So that is a flow. So if you have some background machine and if you take that Geerling CentOS 7 image, so that has all the repositories pre-configured. If you just say yum install Ansible, it installs the Ansible on the machine, right? So when you say to install Ansible, there are some prerequisites which we need to install, right? So SSH is one of them, another is Python, and there are some SSH other packages related to SSH. So I mean, we don't have to worry about all of them because yum takes care of it. So when we say Ansible, it internally installs all other tools which are required for Ansible to be installed. So I mean, all the dependencies which are required for Ansible. Right. So if you have the Vagrant VM created, just say yum install Ansible on one of the machine, that will install Ansible on that machine. It also installs SSH packages. It also installs Python. Why Python is written? Because Python Ansible is written in Python. Right? Is this clear?
On the mask you're going to push later. Are we going to install the software before installing the Ansible, during, or what? Like, what is the sequence for installing the software or any package
which software you're talking about?
I mean, if we have to push that software to other client servers or push any package.
Yeah, so the first step is setup and configuration. For any tool, any tools, not only this tool, for any tool. So first what we need to do is install the tool, then configure it, then use it. So basically we need to push the software to clients, then we need to have the configuration first. So we need to have the installation configuration done first. So first we need to install Ansible on the server and do the setup. Once that is done, then we can use the scripts to push. Right? That is a sequence. Is this clear? So there are a lot of documentation available for Ansible. So what do we do is we go for the installation. docs.ansible.com is a site where you can go through the documentation. So RPMs are available for yum for EPEL. This is what is extra packages enterprise Linux. This is a repository which is set up to be used for Red Hat Fedora and CentOS. So if we set up this repository, we can automatically install most of the open source software. So this is the RPM. If you click on it, you can download this and you can install EPEL RPM first. So what it does internally, it will set up something called etc yum.repos.d epel.repo that has information about this repository, and then after setting up, when you say yum install something, it goes to this and installs the particular software. Okay, so for Ubuntu apt-get, Ubuntu packages are also available in this. You can see here. So this is how we add a repository for Ubuntu, right? So add repository is a command, apt-get add repository, that will again add the Ansible site to the machine, and then you say apt-get install, it will install that particular software on the machine, right? Is it clear? Okay, so let me try to install. So this is CentOS, so I don't have to, I think all the repositories are configured because I'm using the image from Vagrant that has everything set up. So let me see if Ansible is installed. So if you just type Ansible, it says command not found, means it's not installed. So if I see RPM also, there is nothing installed, right? I'm just checking the software available, right? So let us try to install. If you see, this is already available, EPEL. EPEL by default is not installed if you have a Linux installation, but if you have the Vagrant VM, it's by default installed. This is the box which we are using, right? So if you use the same box, you don't have to do anything. It is installed by default. If you don't have that, that's also again easy. Simply go to Google and download epel.repo. That's a package. Then rpm-ivh, that install that epel.repo. That will install epel.repo. Then you can just say install Ansible. That will install Ansible. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's straightforward. Just one command that will install the Ansible. So if you don't have the dependencies installed, it will install by default something like Python and all, or SSH packages and all. So if you have everything, it will directly install Ansible, right? You can see here when you just type Ansible, it shows the usage, right? Is this clear? We just install Ansible. Okay. So what happens if I do, I'm on Linux machine 1, if I do SSH-l root Linux 2, what happens? Yeah, it has the credentials and you have provided the credentials. What happens next? So yeah, connection will be established and you'll log into the other machine, right? Yeah, when you do this, it will ask the credentials and you provided the credentials, you log into the remote machine, right? Right. So what happens now? So when you say SSH, you log into the other machine using the root user, the first command, and the second command SSH-root and Linux machine IP address or the host name, and then you execute a command. What happens here? So let us try that. So I have one machine. And this is the other machine. This is the one. This is master. This is agent. Now let us say I want to connect to agent using the IP address. Okay, so if you see, this is my first machine. When I say SSH, I logged into the other machine, right? And this is the IP address of the, so basically this is the host, this is the source, this machine is the source, this machine is the destination. So from here I logged into this machine, right? This part is clear, right? When we say SSH, it will ask the password, and if you provide the right password, we'll log into the other machine, right? This is like a remote machine. First machine is Ansible master, second machine is something else, right? And when you exit, you'll go back to the first machine, right? So basically you opened a session, SSH session, it will ask the credentials. Once you provide the credentials, you log into the remote machine, and you're no more inside the first machine, you log into the second machine, and if you execute any commands, those commands gets executed on the second machine, not on the first machine, right? So if you just say touch file, so if you just say ls, so this file is actually created on the remote machine, not on your first machine, right? And if you just say, if you exit, so there is nothing. Okay, there is a file, but there is a different file. This created on 28th, this created on 30th, right? So SSH is to log into the remote machine, right? Using SSH and the credentials and the machine name, we log into the remote host, right? That is the first command. Now let us try the second thing. So this output is from which machine? So we are on first machine, and we executed ssh-root and the machine name and some command. So that command is actually executed on the remote machine. But did we log into the machine? So where is the prompt? We are on first machine or the second machine? Yeah, right. So basically what happens, it goes to the second machine, it executes the command, and it displays the output, and it comes back, right? So that's the sequence what happens when you do this. When you just do SSH, you log into the machine, and the prompt will be on the second machine, and whatever you execute, that will be on the second machine. And when you execute SSH and a command, and that command will be executed on the remote machine, and the output will be shown, but the prompt will be on the first machine. So you are still on the first machine, right? Is this clear? So this is the concept on which Ansible works, right? So very simple, right? So we basically have, you want to do something, you want to touch a file using Ansible. So Ansible also does internally same thing. So it does SSH to the remote machine, and it performs some command based on the script. So you have written a script. That script will do SSH to the remote machine and perform the automation. So this will be a very huge command, or this might be a script, or this might be a Python module, right? So basically we log into the remote machine, and it executes and comes back. So if you have 10 machines also, it executes that command on all the 10 machines parallelly, right? So by default, the Ansible execution is parallel in nature, in the sense you have 100 machines and you have executed a command on all the 100 machines. That command will be executed parallelly. So we can also set it to serial, but by default it is parallel. Let us say installing a package on agent 1 is taking 10 minutes. So installing the same package on agent 2 is again taking 10 minutes, right? So let us say I have 100 agents like this. So using Ansible, how much time it takes to update all machines? Basically, a certain task takes 10 minutes to be executed on a single machine, and like that it has to be done on 100 machines. So if we do manually, it takes 100 into 10,000 minutes to complete the job, right? That is serial execution. But Ansible by default does parallel execution. So if you just perform something parallelly, that task will be executed on all the 100 agents, and the total which it takes to complete the job is 10 minutes. So that's a huge advantage which Ansible has. So how it is done, Ansible internally uses some Python modules that will open the parallel threads, and it opens such connections, and they update the machines parallelly. So that's the reason why the execution is parallel in nature. Is this clear? Yeah, definitely. It depends on the CPU resources. So generally, server is powerful. You have a server with a lot of CPU, a lot of memory, a lot of RAM. And the agents, so that it manages all the agents effectively, right? So while selecting the server itself, we choose a server which is huge in configuration. Yeah, the repository configuration, you mean EPL repo? So basically, when you're installing some package, you need to check what is the hardware architecture. So how do we check that? Yes. So you are installing something, that package is available in different architectures, right? So you need to select the right architecture to install the package. Yes, uname-na will give the correct architecture. So based on that, you need to select the package. So if you see it is x86_64, so you need to select this package, right? So you just say, you copy the link and just say wget, you'll get the package installed. There's something wrong. Okay, it downloaded something else. So this is the package which is downloaded, which is EPEL release 7.10 no architecture.rpm. So this package, if you install, it's like you will have the EPL repo configured. So very simple, just do rpm-ivh and EPL release. So this will install. So I think I already have the package, that's what it's saying, it's already installed. So if you don't have, you can just install, right? So how do you install? Just do wget and the link, right? And wget will download the package to the local machine, and then you can just say rpm-ivh to install. Is this clear? Not only this package, any package if you want to install, you can directly download from net using wget and install it. Or you can use yum to install it. Or if you want to install, you can also download it to Windows machine, and from there we can copy it to Linux machine and install. Right? Is this clear so far? So we just installed Ansible on one of the machines, and we install repository first, then we install the Ansible RPM. Right? So on the master, Ansible is ready. So if you just type Ansible, we have the package ready. We have the configuration ready. Now what is the next step? The next step is add the clients to add the agents to master. Right? So in the sense we need to tell master like manage these agents. Right? So how do we manage? So we need to add in a file that is called etc ansible host. So this is a inventory file which has information about the agents master manages. Right? So this file we need to update with the agent information. So basically we have installed the Ansible on one of the machines, and agent we need to add it to the master. So how do we add? We add that information in etc ansible host. That is the inventory file where we give information about the agent. So once we add the agent to this, then Ansible, if we execute some command, Ansible tries to execute that command on the agent, right? But before that, we need to set up passwordless authentication. What is passwordless authentication? So when we say, let us say you have Ansible master and we have agents, we need to Ansible master execute commands on the agents, right? So how does it execute? Generally when we do SSH, it asks the password, but to use Ansible, we need to set up something called passwordless authentication. Then only the master will be able to communicate, right? So if you want to do automation, it should not ask the password, right? So basically it should have the control over the agents. So that's the reason why we set passwordless authentication between the master and the agents. So there is a procedure to do that. So basically we need to exchange the keys, SSH keys, and SSH keys we need to add it. Then once we add it, so there is a file called, there is a folder called .ssh, there is a directory .ssh. In that we need to add the keys. If we add that and then we perform SSH, it will not ask the password. So once we have done this, then we can execute, we can add it to etc ansible host, then we can execute any command on the agent. Right? So setting up SSH, passwordless SSH we'll see tomorrow. Any questions for now?
Yeah, like I have a custom installation, like in my VMware, I have two different Linux flavors, and so how to change the IP address? Like both of the systems have the same IP. How to change the IP address for a second system? Like if I want to transfer something, you need to connect to a different IP, right?
So which operating system, which distribution is it?
Yeah, it's both CentOS, both flavors are CentOS, but I have two installations on VM.
See, there is something called this file etc sysconfig network scripts if cfg.
Okay.
1 minute. So this is your adapter ENP0S or something like ETH01, ETH02 will be there, right? So there is a file associated with this adapter. So this has one IP, right? So what we can do is there is something called IP address tag. There you need to change it, and then service network or networking restart. this will restart the network, and this new IP address will be assigned to the machine. This is a permanent. If you do this permanently, this IP address will be assigned to this machine. Or temporarily, we can do using ifconfig command, something like ifconfig eth0 if it is the interface, and some IP 9.10.10.1 and netmask 55.55.0 up. This will also set the IP address, but if you restart the network or if you reboot the machine, that IP address will be lost. So if you want that IP address to be permanent, we need to update in this file and restart the network or reboot the machine. Right?
Yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, if you enable DHCP, automatically IP will be assigned. So that is also mentioned here, something like boot protocol or something. So is it static or is it dynamic? Yeah, this thing, boot proto. If it is boot proto, you should have the DHCP server setup. If you don't want that, if you want to assign manually, then we can set it to static.
Okay.
Okay, so we have seen Ansible. We have seen Ansible installation. Ansible is for the configuration management and the continuous deployment. We can use Ansible to perform some task on the remote machine. Ansible is parallel in nature. Ansible is agentless. Ansible uses SSH. Ansible uses YAML for writing the playbooks, and Ansible is written in Python. So the question is, when we can write in shell scripting, when we can write in Python scripting, why do we need tools like Ansible, Chef, and Puppet? Anything we can write in shell scripting, and if it's not scalable, or if we want some complicated logic, we can always go for Python or Ruby or Groovy. So why do we need tools like Chef and Puppet and Ansible for automation? See, anything can be done using the scripting. If you have the Python scripting, it doesn't matter how many machines you have. So the answer is very simple. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? So if you use Ansible, there are already modules written, readily available. So that is called Ansible Galaxy. This is a repository of modules, right? So basically any tool you take, Chef or Puppet or Ansible Salt Stack, so there will be a repository wherein all the modules will be available. So if you want MySQL, just download the module and use it. There is nothing like you have to write a script and you have to add the parameters, you have to take care of logging. Nothing is required. You just have a requirement, search for that in the Galaxy, download the module and use it. So we have everything is readily available. Directly we have to use them. That's all. That's the reason why we use tools like Ansible or Chef or Puppet. If you want some customization, you can download the module and use it. Or if you want a completely new requirement, we can write it. And we still have the scripting languages, but there are two advantages using the configuration management tools. One is the repository where we can download, and the second thing is using configuration management tools is easy because the language which we write is it's like a simple plain English with syntax. So there is definitely a syntax associated with every tool, but it is comparatively easy, right? We can write simply something like a package state equal to install. That's all. That will go and install that particular package on the clients. Is this clear? There is a lot of difference in terms of the architecture, how they work, right? So Puppet has server and agent. Chef has something called Chef Workstation, Chef Server, and Chef Client. Ansible is agentless, right? So it depends on the requirement. We choose the tool. We'll go in depth into each of them: Ansible, Chef, and Puppet. So for now we'll focus on Ansible. And so if any new organization is there and they are starting infrastructure management and they want to manage their infrastructure or going for continuous deployment, there are more chances that they choose Ansible because it is simple and it is new, right? And if there is any organization which is already following something like Chef or Puppet, So Puppet advantage is it has a lot of modules. 5,000 modules are available in Puppet, whereas Ansible, I think around 1,000 or 1,500 modules are there. So if there is any requirement, there are more chances like you get that in Puppet ready-made, right? Okay, so we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow at the same time. Are you following the classes so far? We have covered Linux scripting, and we have also covered, we have started Ansible. Any difficulty in following, or are you comfortable with at least the Linux part and Vagrant part? Vagrant is only for developing the test environment, or just for your practice. In your organization also, you want to implement a new tool that has come in the market. So how do we do that? We spin up a Vagrant VM, we install the tool on our laptop, right? Then you configure another machine and you try to manage it. So that's how we try on the local machine. And if you want to write some script also, we try it first on the local machine, and then we go for the production or the development machines, right? So that's the reason why install Vagrant first, get comfortable with Linux, then try to install Ansible, and we see some of the scripts. Okay then, we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you. Bye bye.